All right, I am here with Ryan Zimmerman. Ryan has experience as a career media member in baseball. He's the play-by-play voice of the Geary Wildcats. He spent some time in the Midwest Collegiate League, along with some other baseball leagues throughout his years. He's a Cal Berkeley graduate, very well respected, just baseball voice all around the Midwest area. He also broadcasts for the RSN RSN, correction, RSN. So Ryan, thank you again for sitting down and meet with me today. I feel like as if you would be a perfect person to kind of talk to about the divisional round of the playoffs. So how are you doing here today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Again, very thankful that you could sit down with me. So I think we can kind of just hop like right into it. Wild card round just ended. We're now into the divisional part of the baseball. We're getting to the big boys now. Finally got everyone who really ultimately deserves to kind of be there. What did you make of the wild card round, and what are you most excited about for the divisional round?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on. It's always a pleasure to do interviews like these. But my biggest takeaway from the wild card round was decision making. I felt like in game decisions played a big part in every series of the four. And I know you being a big Twins fan, you'll love this one, but I feel like the most impactful moment in the entirety of the wild card round across all four series was the Blue Jays' decision to pull Jose Barrios 47 pitches into his start. It sometimes feels like when you're in the postseason, you want to manage a game differently because the stakes are higher and you have less margin for error. And while that's true, sometimes analytics can take a bigger role within that, and you're not trusting your eyes as much, and you're not really relying upon the guys that got you to where you're at. And I think that was a perfect encapsulation of what Toronto did, pulling Jose Barrios. You see this across all four series as well, leaving Tyler Glasnow in too long for the Rays, going on the other end of that. The Milwaukee Brewers turning to as many relievers as they did in game one. And in the Phillies Marlins series, you didn't really see too much of that. The Phillies just straight up dominated. But in-game decision making, I think, proved how crucial it is. And the teams that go far, I think, have the managers that push the right buttons at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the Jose Barrios pulling him in about the fourth or fifth inning was a little confusing, especially when it's a game, the season's on the line. You're already down 1-0. So yeah, I think that was a really good example. So now let's kind of just get into the matchups for this weekend and just this whole round as a whole. Rangers Orioles. Who do you like in that series and why?
I like Baltimore, but I'm going to go Baltimore in five. I think they're a very exciting team, and they have a lot of really fun players to watch. You got Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Cedric Mullins, but their pitching staff, though they don't necessarily have the biggest names, they're very deep. The one thing that really scares me about this group is their lack of postseason experience, both on the field and in the dugout. Meanwhile, the Rangers have Bruce Bochy. You don't really need to say too much about him. He's one of the greatest managers in the history of the game. And you have a couple guys on that team that have playoff experience. And Jacob DeGrom, though he's not healthy, he'll be around the team. He pitched in the World Series before. You go up with that type of experience as a young team, you're going to run into a few issues, but I think Baltimore's talent should really push them through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the Rangers are also kind of hot right now. I mean, I think they completely dominated the Rays. So I'm a little intrigued to see if it kind of could roll over into the next series here with the Orioles because like you said, they are very inexperienced. And their pitching staff, it's solid, but I don't know if it's as deeper when you compare it to everyone else around like
True,
who
you don't have the big names, but they definitely have depth, and that's a big thing.
Absolutely, and I love their offense. That arguably might be the best offense in the American League. It's been a huge surprise this season. I'm intrigued to see how the Rangers kind of handle it because I think you got two offenses really going at it. Where I think this could be a high-scoring series, and it's going to be exciting from just an entertainment standpoint.
Yeah, pitching is going to be the big X factor in this one. The Rangers brought in a lot of arms last offseason, for this exact scenario. So I'm interested to see if they can rise to the occasion and slow down a red hot Baltimore hitting core.
Absolutely. And now, we head to the next matchup. You mentioned earlier, I told you before that I am a Twins fan. How do you expect the Carlos Correa against his former team kind of panning out? And it was just announced a little bit ago that Bailey Uber will be starting game one for the Minnesota Twins.
Oh, it'll be a fun series. And I think Correa is going to have a lot of motivation because keep in mind, back when he was let go in 2021, the Astros decided not to renegotiate with him. They basically just told him they didn't need him. And then the guy that ends up taking his place, Jeremy Pena, he ends up winning World Series MVP. So I think Correa is going to have a lot of motivation going up against a team that found him expendable. I don't think the Twins are going to win the series, but I think they're going to make it competitive. I'll say Astros in four.
Okay. And then it does sound like I would love your thoughts on this, on the strategy that Rocco Baldelli is kind of implementing right now. It sounds like the plan, which is a little odd for me because like I don't know if I've really seen this before, but it sounds like they're gonna throw Bailey Uber game one, then Pablo Lopez is gonna go game two, Sonny Gray game three, game four will then finally be Joe Ryan, who I would arguably say is better than Bailey Uber right now, and then they'll go Pablo game five if 4 and 5, if it gets to that point. So what is your thoughts on that, and what do you think his like strategy kind of is behind that? And do you think is that a good move or is that a bad move, or should you kind of keep it simple?
I can understand what he's trying to do here. Obviously, Joe Ryan's been excellent throughout the season, but he's still a young guy. I mean, Bailey Uber is too, but you also have Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray as insurance. And then when you get to that point in game four, if there is a game four, you'll have Ryan ready to go. I can understand what he's doing. This is one where if it works, Baldelli's going to get praised for it. If not, he's going to get vilified for it. So I'm taking the wait and see approach. This feels like one of those decisions that you can't judge right away.
Okay, and then it sounds like Verlander will be going game one. Astros, I think, match up very well with the Twins just from a starting rotation standpoint. But the biggest X factor for me in this series, I think, is how far can Royce Lewis kind of like take this offense? Because they did beat the Blue Jays, but outside of Royce Lewis, that offense was a little stagnant. Correa had a big game, the set for game two, but outside of those two, the offense has been pretty stagnant, and there's no Byron Buxton. So do you think the Twins have any shot to kind of really compete with the Astros offense?
Only if their pitching steps up the way they did in the wild card round. I thought they had a lot of excellence on the mound. Obviously, Joan Duran had those two saves. And if your closer's right in the postseason, that does wonders for your team because it shortens games. But their starting pitching throughout that series was phenomenal. And pitching cannot be understated, especially in October. You can hit as well as you want, but if you can't pitch, you're not going to go far.
Absolutely. And then before we move on to the next game, what do you think about Royce Lewis? I mean, what a start for him for missed the last few weeks due to a hamstring injury, and then he steps up in the biggest game of his career. Is I believe he's still technically a rookie. So what kind of impact do you think he could have against this Astros pitching staff?
Well, rookie in name only. He's had a couple of years where he's played in the show. He just hasn't gotten to that 130 at bat mark. I don't think not until this past year. I think, the Twins drafted him number one for a reason because they envisioned him stepping up in games like this. And that was a big gamble at the time, considering that Hunter Green was the consensus top prospect. But, it was a very promising sign. He stepped up with the game on the well, maybe it wasn't on the line just yet because it was his first two at bats, but in a big game, the biggest stage he's ever played on in his entire career, he delivered. I remember reading somewhere he's the first Twin since Gary Gaetti to hit 2 home runs in his first two postseason at bats with the Twins. I don't know if he's going to have a game like that again because 2 home runs and two at bats is incredibly difficult and it doesn't happen all that often. But it's got to give him a lot of confidence, and especially facing a deep Astros pitching staff, confidence is well served for a series like this.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting because I feel like those are just two teams that really that could honestly be the most intriguing series of the bunch because the Twins get past the Houston Astros. I mean, that would be one heck of a run, and who knows at that point if you could bet against them in the
Yeah, you'd be
ALCS.
doing the Twins would be doing baseball a favor if they did that, honestly, with how good the Astros have been. And with 2022, the World Series win kind of puts the whole cheating label to bed. I still don't think the Astros have made too many fans. So I think baseball would love a little variety in the ALCS.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to I think the most exciting, best just baseball type matchup here because I think these teams are the two best in the NL to me. They've been two teams I followed all year. Big fan of their roster construction is the Atlanta Braves and Phillies. I expect this game to go to 5. What do you like about the series and how do you think it plays out?
What I like about the series is that it's a rematch of last year. Coming off the World Series win, everybody expected the Braves to just roll right through a Phillies team that hadn't made the postseason in 10 years. But Philly just ran right past them 3 games to 1. And that was a really fun series to watch. And I think it was a big building block on their run to the World Series. And it really made the Braves rethink their approach. And you see that heading into the NLDS here in 2023. I think they realized that rest is good, but it really doomed them the last time out because they looked a little rusty. They weren't as sharp. And Philly took advantage of that, having just beaten the Cardinals in the wild card round just a couple days prior. So I think you're going to see an Atlanta team that's very hungry. And with the year under their belt after winning the World Series, understanding what it's like to operate as the cream of the crop, I think you're going to see a lot of fireworks in that series. And I'm going to say it will go 5, and the Braves will get their revenge.
Okay, okay. I kind of feel the same way. The Phillies were very dominant against the Marlins, but this Braves team has been my pick from the get-go to win it all. I just think their farm system, manager, just that roster is so deep from top to bottom. I like Philly. I like their rotation. I like their offense, but there's just some of this Braves team that it just seems like they want to get some revenge from last year and they want to show the baseball world that we're here for the long term. It wasn't just a 1 year fluke. Like we are here to dominate.
I think they've already done that in the way they've constructed their roster with all their players on long-term team-friendly deals. But I feel like the way the Phillies have constructed their roster, the Braves found a way to do it better. As you look at the Phillies roster, it is long ball centric. Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos. But on the other side, the Braves set a major league record for home runs in a season. Matt Olson hit 50 plus. Ronald Acuna went 40-70. As much as I'm not exactly happy about the timing in which he went 40-70, but I feel like the Braves are the team that everyone is trying to model, guys that can do it all in the field. But their calling card is their power. I'll give the Phillies credit. They showed up when they needed to in the wild card round. But with all due respect to the Marlins, there is a huge chasm between the Marlins and the Braves, and the Phillies really need to step up their game if they want to be competitive.
Absolutely. It's going to be a very intriguing series. I'm very excited for it. So now let's talk about the very last one. Honestly, I think the one I'm the least excited about because I feel like the Dodgers are going to absolutely steamroll the Diamondbacks because I feel like the Diamondbacks really put it all on the field against the Brewers. So now we got Diamondbacks against Dodgers, two division rivals. I don't know if they're rivals because the Diamondbacks haven't been great for a while now, but they are still in the same division, so they are rivals. How do you see that series taken out? It looks like it's going to be Merrill Kelly against Clayton Kershaw for the first game.
Well, I'm going to say don't count the Diamondbacks out. They are a very good team. They have the pitching they need to survive in October. You have Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen in that rotation. But, you look at the Dodgers rotation, who do they have? Clayton Kershaw and who else? Walker Bueller has not pitched in the major leagues very much this year. Julio Urias, we don't need to talk about what he did. Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin have both been ruled out for the season because they both got Tommy John. So who do the Dodgers have pitching wise after Kershaw? Can the Diamondbacks feast on that? And they have the guys to do it in Alec Thomas and Corbin Carroll. and Christian Walker. I think Gabby Moreno, their catcher, being out could be a huge X factor. But I do think the Diamondbacks have what it takes to keep up with the Dodgers, and don't count them out. They could easily pull off an upset here.
You know what? I think you might have talked me into it a little bit because the more I started thinking about it, outside of Kershaw, I think they're going to be relying on a guy named Lance Lynn, and that's a guy who likes to give up the long ball, and that's something the Diamondbacks do pretty well. A lot of
I
power.
wouldn't say he likes
I
it.
mean,
But
we
after
saw it with
Lance
the
Lynn,
White
who you got?
Sox. We saw it with the White Sox. I could tell you firsthand. There's been a lot of people I know that are big in the sports betting that they called it fade Lance Lynn Day or bet the over in the game. So it's hard to say. I mean, I do like the Dodgers. I feel like they do have a big veteran presence. They've been in this spot for God knows how many years in a row now. Like they've Dodgers in postseason. It's just what baseball is at this point. So I am excited because I know I'm a little worried because Zach Gallen, he just pitched like game 2 against the Brewers, so he's probably not going to see what he won't maybe game 2, game 3.
I'm actually not sure. I would expect him.
Yeah, so to me, I think that's going to play a really big factor. But I'm intrigued by. I think what this series will ultimately come down to will be the young kids stepping up for the Diamondbacks, and if the moment's not too big for them, they can absolutely give the Dodgers a series. But I keep going back and forth. That's why this series is so odd for me because it's like okay, I have one hand, you got the young guys could really step up and show out, but on the other hand, you have the Dodgers who everyone on that team is a vet. They've been here for who knows how many years in a row. Like they have been here, and this is the stage is not too big for them. So if you had to just lay a guess, how many games does it take for which team to win?
I'm going to say 4.
Okay.
And I'm going to sound like a contrarian here, but I do think the Dodgers are going to pull this out. But I think Arizona could pull off some surprises. I know it sounds like I'm hedging here, but think about it this way. The Diamondbacks haven't been to the postseason since 2017, and they've got an exciting young core, an up and coming pitching staff, and they're playing with house money. No one's expecting anything from them in this series. No one was expecting them to beat the Brewers. But now that they're here, they've got nothing to lose, and I expect that they're going to play like it.
Absolutely. I'm very excited for it. So right before we end the podcast here, World Series prediction. What's your World Series prediction and who wins and why?
I know this is going to be wrong because these never go according to plan,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to go Braves over Astros. As much as I don't want to see the Astros get back to the World Series, I don't think 2017 will ever go away. But these are just the two most deep teams and the two teams with the most postseason experience. In fact, you're getting a matchup of the last 2 World Series winners and a rematch of 2021. And I think that could be really exciting for baseball. I think it's a very marketable series for Major League Baseball in general. But I'm going to say Braves win it.
I hate it as a Twins fan as much like I think the Twins could go to the World Series if they beat the Astros because I think they could go on one of those like Cinderella type runs. But that's my heart speaking. My logic is telling me you don't bet against the Astros. It's kind of like the Patriots in football when they had Tom Brady. Like you just don't bet against them until they magically get upset. So for me, I think I'm in agreement with you. I'm going Braves because I think they're the best team in baseball, and then I think they'll take on the Astros, and I think the Astros are probably going to lose. I know they won. They've been dominant for 5 years now. Like they have been the team in the American League.
They've been in every ALCS in the last 7 years.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to bet against that. So yeah, I'm going Braves. I'm going Astros. Hopefully the Braves pull it out because the Braves are a very easy team to root for, and I think all of America is will forever just root against the Astros. So I'm going Braves, and I think that game's. I'll even say that I think they go 7. Yeah, probably about 7. I think
That'd
that's
be a fun series.
yeah,
It'd be a very fun series.
absolutely. Again, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to interview me. I know you're a very busy guy, so this means a lot. And any final thoughts before we end the podcast here?
Enjoy October. It's always the best time of year for baseball, and I'm fired up, so I hope you are too.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much. And that'll conclude my sports podcast for my sports blogging class. So hopefully everyone that's listening enjoys, and maybe there'll be more to come.